So take a second to think about all the things you want to accomplish during your time here at Clemson. It's probably to graduate, maybe get an internship, join a club, anything like that. And obviously we all have some pretty big goals that we want to achieve, and it's really important to keep these in mind during your time here so that you can stay focused on them and work your way towards achieving them. So it's important to think about these because it's also important to acknowledge that drugs and alcohol could get in the way of these goals, and we don't want to see that happen. So I like to say that not everyone drinks or chooses to drink. We are also not here to tell you what to do or how to do it. We're just here to give you information to keep you safe, to keep other people safe, and know the facts and what's really going on. So in terms of alcohol, 33% of first-year students at Clemson reported not drinking alcohol in the past 30 days. So you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to hear statistics from 1920, but nope, that's from spring of 2018. This is a real statistic of what's going on here at Clemson. Maybe you think 33% is really low, maybe you think it's really high, but it's important to realize that 1/3 of first-year students at Clemson reported not drinking in the past 30 days. Also, obviously, the legal drinking age is 21, so if you're under 21, it is illegal to consume alcohol. So, because the legal drinking age is 21, it doesn't always mean that people stick to that or follow that rule. So, there are a lot of reasons that people under 21 choose to drink. Maybe that is because of peer pressure, maybe it's because of wanting to fit in, maybe it's because it's ingrained in our culture on things like game days and stuff like that. But there are also many reasons why you should wait to be 21 to drink. So in terms of mental health, those who wait until 21 have improved long and short-term cognitive skills, including memory formation and decision-making ability. In terms of emotional health, those who wait till 21 are less likely to suffer from depression, stress, risk of suicide, and alcoholism. In terms of educational impacts, this one's pretty obvious. If you are not out drinking and doing other drugs, you're probably studying, you're probably doing your homework. So those who don't drink contribute more time to their schoolwork. And the biggest one is safety issues. So on average, about 4,000 people under the age of 21 die due to alcohol-related injuries each year. That is really scary. That's a very high number, and that could have been avoided if alcohol was not involved. So for drivers ages 16 to 20, a car accident is 17 times more likely to occur when the driver is legally intoxicated than when they're sober. So obviously it is never okay to drink and drive regardless of what age you are at, but it's super important that if you're under 21, you do not have any alcohol before getting behind the wheel of a car. So in terms of alcohol consumption and its effects on the body, the first thing I want to go over is BAC, or blood alcohol concentration. So blood alcohol concentration is basically how much alcohol is in your blood when you are drinking. So there are 4 main factors that affect your BAC, and those are gender, weight, amount of alcohol consumed, and the amount of time it's been consumed in. So if you look at this graph over here, it shows kind of each feeling that's associated with each number on the BAC chart. So up until about 0.06 is when you're still in those positive effects of alcohol. Maybe you're relaxed, feeling a little bit buzzed. But you can see that after 0.06 is when it starts to kind of all go downhill. And the farther you get down the BAC scale, the worse it's going to be. So after 0.06, your cognitive judgment starts to be impaired. Your motor coordination starts to be impaired. Maybe you lose some of your cognitive ability, have some poor judgment, and up around here near 0.25 is when blackouts can start to occur. So it's really interesting to notice that the legal driving limit, if you're over the age of 21, is 0.08, but by 0.08, some of the negative effects have already started to happen. So that's really important to keep in mind. If you are 21 and you've even had some alcohol to drink, you may already be feeling the negative effects of it before you're actually at that legal limit where you can still drive. So, as I said, drinking and driving is never okay, but also even more of a reason to not do it. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things that affects your BAC is your gender. So, it's just our genetic makeup. There is no rhyme or reason. It is purely just science. So, you can see from this graph here that if a man and a woman have the exact same amount to drink over the exact same amount of time, a woman's BAC will always be higher. It's just how it is. And this is really important to think about if you are ever a guy or a girl and you're drinking with someone from the opposite sex. It's important to realize that you both don't have the same limit. You both should pace yourself, but it's really important to know how alcohol is going to affect each of you differently. So the rule of thumb when it comes to drinking is your body can process 1 standard drink per hour, but a lot of people don't always know what 1 standard drink is. So this graph shows 1 standard drink of different types of alcohol. So it's 12 fluid ounces of 5% beer, so that's 1 can, 8 to 9 fluid ounces of malt liquor, about 7% alcohol. It's 5 fluid ounces of 12% table wine, and it's 1.5 fluid ounces of any hard liquor. So just because it is in 1 cup doesn't necessarily mean it's 1 drink. 1 drink still goes along with these sizes, so even if you pour half a solo cup full of hard liquor, that is multiple drinks. Just because it is in that 1 solo cup does not mean it is 1 drink of alcohol. So going back to the numbers I talked about earlier, I mentioned that 0.06 number was where all the negative effects start to begin. So that 0.06 point is called the point of diminishing return. You can see that before 0.06, all the positive effects are happening, you're feeling good, you're feeling happy, but after that 0.06, that's when it all goes downhill. That's when you're crying in the bathroom, that's when you're screaming outside, that's when you're getting into fights, and all that not so good stuff that comes along with alcohol. A lot of people think that the more you drink, the better you'll feel, and you'll just keep going up and up and up. But that is not the case. If you've ever drank for a very long period of time, you know that is definitely not the case. You will not start to feel better over time. You will start to feel worse. So if you do choose to drink, there are some ways you can stay safe. These are called risk reduction behaviors. So you can alternate alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks. So you can have 1 beer and 1 glass of water. That will help to keep you safe. That'll help to keep your BAC down, and it'll also make you feel better overall. So you should always stay with the same group of friends the entire time when you're out. So this happens a lot, and it's really sad to see, just because a lot of bad things can happen when people get left alone. If they're too intoxicated, they might not know how to get home. They might not even know where they are, anything like that. So it's really important to always stay with the same people you came with and not leave anyone behind. You could obviously choose not to drink alcohol. You could take an intoxicated friend's keys away. As I said earlier, never drive. There are so many ways around this. You can use Uber, Lyft, you can use Cat Bus, you can use a DD. There are so many ways to not drink and drive that you never should. So obviously avoid drinking games. We say this because drinking games can cause your BAC to rise very, very quickly because you're drinking a lot in a very short amount of time. And also with many drinking games, you don't really know how much you're drinking, so it can get very dangerous very quickly. Pace your drinks to 1 or fewer an hour. Do not accept an open container of alcohol. This is a general rule. Even here at Clemson, we like to think everyone's good, but sometimes people have some not so great intentions, so you always want to drink out of a closed container. And if you ever leave your drink alone for a longer amount of time, just go ahead and get a new drink. It's not worth testing that one in case anything was put in it or anything like that. And always plan your way home before you go out. You never want to be stuck on the side of the road at 3 a.m. in the freezing cold. No one enjoys doing that. So alcohol poisoning is a medical emergency, as we saw on that graph earlier. When it gets to the really high BAC point, it can become a medical emergency and it can be a fatal dose of alcohol. So when your BAC gets really, really high and it is a fatal dose of alcohol, your involuntary bodily functions can stop. So that's breathing, that's your gag reflex, and you can literally choke to death on your own vomit or something like that because your body does not know how to work because it has had so much alcohol. So there are some telltale signs of alcohol poisoning. So these are mental confusion, stupor or coma, vomiting, seizures, slow breathing, irregular breathing, and hypothermia. It is really important to understand that this is not a checklist. Even if just one of these is present, it can be alcohol poisoning, so go ahead and call 911. Don't wait for them to have a seizure and they're breathing slowly and they have hypothermia, but if they have all those, don't just wait for them to vomit to be able to call the police. Definitely go ahead and call if you even see just one of these. It's also really important to know that even if someone passes out, their BAC can still rise. So if your friend had a lot to drink and suddenly they pass out, don't just think that they'll be fine, they'll sleep it off, because their body is still trying to process all that alcohol, which means their BAC is continuing to rise even when they stop drinking. So as I said, definitely go ahead and call the police if you ever suspect someone has alcohol poisoning. This is not something to play around with. This is not something to wait. This is not something to test your luck. Definitely go ahead and call the police because you want to get this person help and you want to help them be safe. So if you're thinking that I'm under 21, what if this ever happens to me or a friend? What am I going to do? I could get in trouble with the law. Well, Clemson has a policy in place because they understand that stuff like this happens. It's called the Medical Alcohol Amnesty Policy, and it's basically a policy that says if you and or your friend are underage, which means under 21, and one of you has alcohol poisoning, if you call the police and get them help, both you and your friend will be exempt from university sanctions. So you might still have to meet with the Office of Advocacy and Success. You might have to meet with the CAPS counselor just to make sure everything's okay, but you will not be placed under any university sanctions due to consuming alcohol underage. Clemson and the police just want everyone to be safe, so they want to encourage you to call the police if someone ever has alcohol poisoning or you suspect they have alcohol poisoning. They don't want someone to possibly have a tragedy happen just because someone didn't call because they were underage. So remember with MAP that you're going to be safe from anything that happens and you want to go ahead and make that call because it's not worth it to lose a friend or have something bad happen. So moving into other